Hey everyone, welcome to today's Litvak Leadership Live. We are here with Bruce Silverman, 32-year veteran of broadcasting and works in credit card processing too. Talk about an intersection of careers. Bruce, how are you today?
I'm really well, Sean. Excited to be with you and beautiful day. And hey, let's have some fun.
Absolutely. So I want to let everyone know because I want to give the fraternity its due. Lately, I've been interacting with more of my fraternity brothers from across the country that I haven't necessarily met with. So to all of you out there in fraternities, when they say it's forever, well, guess what? You got to do something for it to be forever. Because if I wouldn't have reached out to Bruce and Bruce responded to me in a Facebook group that our fraternity has for networking, never would have met. True?
No, very true. And I 100% agree with you. For me, this year has been really exciting. I mean, I know COVID and the pandemic and everything else has made life a little crazy. We're all going a little stir crazy. But what was really cool for me in this past year is my youngest son is a freshman, pledged AEPI, was initiated right before Thanksgiving, right before he came home. So for me, it's really cool to see that second generation, and for him to have some of the experiences that I had being a member of AEPI, and seeing what his future can become because he's making these lifelong connections. So I 100% agree with you, and I love doing things like this. It's nice to be on the other side of an interview every once in a while. I'm so used to, after 32 years and thousands of interviews, sometimes it's kind of nice to sit back and just answer questions rather than ask them.
That is funny. When my son is out of college, but when he was in school at Indiana University, he had made friends with some members of AEPI, and he mentioned to them that his father is AEPI, and they said, "Oh, well, you're a legacy. Come join the house." It wasn't, we're going to interview. He was like, "Come join the house," and he's like, "No, I'm really not interested." They're like, "No, you don't understand. You're a legacy. You're in. There's no hoops to go through." And he goes, "Yeah, I'm still not interested." So, but to have these guys just reach out and go, "Yeah, you want to join? Come on."
For my son, he's known AEPI his entire life. On more than a few occasions, he actually had been to my house at the University of Georgia in Athens. It's really kind of funny. I don't think I can quite do the story justice because of the nature, because there was language involved in the way that he described the fraternity house. But right now his house is off campus for the year, so they haven't had access to it. But I'm certain that when he lives there next year, he will describe his living conditions very similar to my living conditions.
Oh yeah. No doubt about it. So, all right. So let's talk about broadcasting.
Sure.
And how did you get into broadcasting? Because you've definitely got the pipes, but I know there's far more to it than that.
Yeah, I think when I got into it, I don't think I necessarily had the pipes. I think my voice was still changing and cracking and doing all of those things. But I think the start of my broadcast career was really fourth grade. Teacher said you have to write a letter to somebody and say, "I want to do your job when I grow up." So I sent a letter to a guy by the name of Chuck Dowdle, who was the lead sportscaster at the ABC affiliate in Miami at the time. And he wrote me a handwritten postcard back and said, "If you ever want to get together and talk about broadcasting, let me know." And you're like 9, 10 years old in the fourth grade. Well, I was 20 or 21 when I actually met Chuck in person. He was then the lead sports anchor and director at the ABC affiliate in Atlanta. and I was at the Hawks draft party at the Omni, which at that time was just for media. It wasn't for the fans the way the draft parties are today. And I was introduced to him by my news director, who used to work with him at WSB. And that forged a lifelong friendship. He's been on my radio show a number of times. I saw him in Athens the last time I was in town, as he's now retired from WSB, but he's the sideline reporter on the football broadcast. He does color on the basketball broadcast. And he was great. When I told him the story about how I reached out to him, he was like, anytime you want to talk, you want to show me your tape, whatever you want to do. So I did. And so he had a major impact on my career. And since then, as most careers go, especially in broadcast, I've had twists and turns and ups and downs and highs and lows. And, you talked about Facebook this morning. I awoke to memories on Facebook. And there was a picture that I had posted from the first broadcast I did in 2017 when I was with Miami FC. And my broadcast partner on that broadcast that night was a guy by the name of Hernan Chico Borja, who was a legend in American soccer in the 80s and early 90s, one of the best indoor soccer players ever, played for the U.S. men's national team, played in the 84 Olympics. Played for the New York Cosmos in the outdoor league, played for Team America in the outdoor league, and has passed away about 2 months ago. So it was nice to wake up to that and see a memory with my friend. Career has definitely had highs and lows, and I think just about anybody in any business is going to tell you that. And I'm honest to say that I've had highs and lows in my career as well.
So your endeavoring into broadcasting began in fourth grade. I remember how my endeavoring into sales was really in high school, when I sold more candy bars than anyone else from my youth group for 4 solid years. No one could sell more candy bars than.
But did you sell them, or did you eat them and then just pay for them?
No, because if we wanted to go to Great America, which is a amusement park outside of Chicago, so we had to get the money. So I sold more than anyone, and that was kind of when I thought, okay, maybe sales one day. And I remember, and I tell you that because I remember the first outside sales call that I went on by myself. I'd always been going with my sales leader, but the first call I had to go on by myself, I sat outside the building in my car, trembling for half an hour, not wanting to screw it up. So I tell you that story to say, what was it like the first time when you were the lead guy behind the mic?
It was funny. The first time I was live on the air, and I remember it vividly. I was filling in as the sports anchor one night. It was planned, and I went into the office and I typed up my scripts and I put on my tie, and I sat on my coattail just the way I learned from Albert Brooks in broadcast news, and I sat down. And I walked onto the set, and nobody would say a word. Nobody would look at me. And I put my scripts down, I put my pencil down, and I said, "Let's rock and roll, boys and girls." And that broke the mood. Everybody was like, okay, he's not nervous, he's good. And it just happened. It's interesting. A lot of people say, well, do you get nervous when you're on the air? Do you feel the butterflies and everything else? And I think for the better part of my career, I'm so active just before it goes live that I almost don't have time. It's almost like, and I think this happens more often than not, I'll be a couple of minutes into a broadcast. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh man, we're already on the air. And it's like at that point, it's like, I can't tell you how many times if I'm reading something, it'll go in my mind. It will be like, oh my God, we're live. And that's when I screw up. Right. it's the greatest feeling in the world. My wife said to me the other day, when do you feel most alive? And I said, when I'm on the air, because it's a magical feeling of being live without a net.
Yes.
When I anchored, there was a script, but you're still live. So if you screw up, you screw up. And at first, when you first start, you don't want to screw up. You're like, I can't screw up. This is not good. And then you learn to kind of embrace screwing up. And you realize that if you really, really watch or listen to broadcasting, you'll find that every broadcaster screws up every single broadcast. There is no such thing. There's no such thing as a perfect broadcast. So if it's mispronouncing a word or a name or skipping something or coughing or whatever it is, we all do it. It's how you handle it that really makes the difference. And I've learned to laugh things off. I've learned to be self-deprecating. I've learned to correct myself. And it also comes down to what's the broadcast about? Is it, when I'm doing play-by-play, that's one thing. When I'm, doing a talk show, that's another. When I was anchoring, it was another. So you just kind of learn to roll with it. One of the things I think really helped my career was I took a break from like 1993, 1994 until about 2008, 2009. I didn't do anything with broadcast. And when I started doing work again, I felt I was 100 times better than I was.
Sure.
Without the practice. And I think it was just maturity and age and life experience and everything else that if I had done it consistently for 30 plus years, I don't know necessarily that I would be better. I may be in a different place.
Sure.
But I don't necessarily know that I would have been a better broadcaster than I am today.
Well, and you may have gotten into a groove, and I say that in a negative way, of doing things the same way and not necessarily innovating. And by taking that break, you were able to sit back and watch broadcasters. And I'm sure during that time you looked at them and thought, gosh, that's really good. And there's other times you looked at them and thought, I'd have done that differently.
Yeah, I think part of it was, I think my style for broadcasting, even back when I started, was more of a style that is accepted today than it was when I started my career.
And what is that style?
So I'm more very conversational. I'm more with pop culture references, movie references, song references, telling personal stories, things like that. And that was kind of frowned upon in the late 80s and early 90s. I remember taking a demo tape. I was driving from the University of Georgia. It was like spring break or summer break or something. And I was driving home to South Florida for like a week. And I was driving through Macon, Georgia, and there's the CBS affiliate that is right on the main drag. And I was driving up on it and I said, screw it. And I got out of the car with my tape in hand and I was wearing jeans and a t-shirt. And I walked in and I said, is there any way that I can see the news director? News director came out, introduced himself. I said, listen, I know I don't have an appointment. I'm driving home for the week. I work at the station up in Athens. Do you mind just taking a look at my tape? And, maybe when I graduate, maybe we can work together. And he took a look at your gumption. No, he definitely did. He definitely did. And actually, he played a role in me actually getting a job in Athens, not at his station, but at another station.
All right.
But I had a stand-up on my tape where I was at the Omni in Atlanta covering it was an exhibition tennis match between Chris Everett and Martina Navratilova.
Okay.
And so I went in to cover that, And there were two matches in this event. One was a girl that was playing at the University of Georgia, who was a good friend of mine, against, I think it was a girl from Georgia Tech. And then after they played a set, Chrissy and Martina played. And so in between, I did a stand-up. And basically, I talked about how I grew up as a tennis player, but I traded in the racket for a microphone. And I threw that into my stand-up. Well, the news director said, "You can't do that." And
but I did. Look,
fast forward 30 years, later, and if you go to any sideline reporter, that's what they would do all day long. They would tell their own weaving of stories in with them, especially if that sideline reporter or that color guy or that and I say color guy, color woman, or the play-by-play announcer will always interject. I can't tell you how many times I've told personal stories on the air. I think, especially when you're the voice of a team, and I've been the voice of 3 different teams, I think when you give a little bit of yourself to the audience relates better. And I think that style that I tried to interject, and I did, is the type of stuff that you ended up seeing on ESPN in ESPN's heyday, and that you see in broadcasts today all the time. So in that respect, I think I was well ahead of my time. And this was just one news director that didn't recognize how creative and revolutionary I really was in 1989.
So which is more difficult, color commentary or play-by-play?
They're very different, and I've done both.
Okay.
What I love about play-by-play is and it's different if you're doing radio and you're doing TV, and I've done both.
Why is it different?
Well, one thing is when you're doing stuff on television, the idea is you give the game, you give the event room to breathe because it's a visual medium. And you don't have to describe everything because the viewers can watch and see for themselves what's going on. When you're doing radio, it's theater of the mind. They're not seeing anything. And what they do see is through your eyes and your description and your creativity and your excitement and everything else. So from the play-by-play perspective, I always felt that my role was to bring the action to the fans. When I do color, it's to analyze what's going on, break it down, what could be done differently, what was done right, what was, what you're seeing and where it came from. And the fact that I've done both, I once asked the guy that was producing the games, I said, "Why did you bring me in to do color when you know I do play-by-play?" And he said, "Because you're one of the only guys that can do color as well as play-by-play, and we needed someone to do color today." And I was like, "All right, cool, I'm in." It's also different preparation. There's different. You have to prepare differently. When you're doing play-by-play, you're the pilot. You're driving the ship, and you've got to do the reads. You've got to tee up the color guy. You've got to tell the story. You've got to give little bits of information about different players so that you're just not, saying their name. You're educating fans as to who they are, what their background is, whatever the situation is. And with color, you're more breaking down the action that just took place or what the strategy might be in a certain scenario. So they're very different. And then sideline reporting is even, more different. And I've done all three.
So when you say sideline reporting, is that, and forgive me, as I told you before we started, Sean, who's your favorite team? I don't care. So for sideline reporting,
and actually that's the majority. That's most fans their favorite team is I don't care. That's it. Most fans will just sit and watch any sporting event anytime, And, they don't care what's playing. And now with fantasy and all the things that you can do and all the betting that you can do, there are people that watch sporting events that don't even care about who wins or loses. They're just trying to make money. That's never been my thing.
And when I think of sideline reporting, for some reason, this is what comes to mind. And keep in mind that the play-by-play or color commentators talking to Hannah Storm. Hannah, what's happening on the sideline?
Yeah, and
and then she talks for like 45 seconds, and that's it.
And that's kind of it. It's kind of being the eyes and ears right there on the sideline, whether it's interviewing coaches or just breaking down what was seen from a different perspective. Everybody's got their own style and brings their own stuff to the broadcast. I've done a lot of voiceovers over the years, and I've done animated films, I've done video games, and occasionally I can do an impression of somebody. And back when I was starting my career and I was at the University of Georgia, the legendary play-by-play voice of the University of Georgia, a guy by the name of Larry Munson, who was fantastic. He became a friend. I can't interview him at all, but the sideline reporter for the University of Georgia was a guy by the name of Lauren Smith. Okay. And Lauren was a very Southern gentleman. And I loved how passionate he was about the University of Georgia, and he worked with the alumni and everything else. And so Larry would say something like, there's an injured player down on the field. Let's go down to Lauren Smith on the sideline and be like, and so Lauren would do this. He would go, "This is Lauren Smith on the sideline. Yes, Larry, there's an injured player on the sideline. Back to you, Larry." And that was basically it. There wasn't a lot of perspective that was brought, but I mean, his voice was fantastic, and it was this great Southern voice, and it was,
Foghorn.
No. It's just I'm Lauren Smith on the sideline. Yes, there's an injured player down, and back to you, Larry. And so I've had fun with that, and I've done broadcasts where I'm just by myself. So it's play-by-play and color and sideline all at one. And I've threatened to do this. I've always wanted to create my own color guy so that he had a voice and I had a voice. So when I went to do the color commentary, it was that guy. And there's a brilliant broadcaster by the name of Phil Henry. And Phil used to be down in Miami. Now he's out in LA. He's a big time voiceover guy. You've seen him. I think he's on Bob's Burgers. He does a lot of work on the Fox shows out there. And he used to do this radio show where he would be by himself in the studio, multiple microphones everywhere, multiple phones, and he would interview himself doing a character with another character calling in to talk to the character he was doing, and him. I say I'm pretty good. I'm not that, but I can have a conversation with myself. And so I don't know. Did you ever watch the show Brockmire? Hank Azaria created a character named Jim Brockmire. It was on IFC where he played a baseball play-by-play announcer by the name of Hank. Hank Azaria played this character Jim Brockmire, who was a baseball play-by-play guy who goes off on a tirade in the middle of a broadcast and loses his MLB career and ends up leaving the country for like 10 years to come back to do play-by-play for like a single A team in the middle of no place. And so I created a character on my radio show one day when we were talking about the show Brockmire. I said, I'm going to create a character. And I said, hey, everybody, my name is Jonathan Brockmire. I'm the illegitimate son of Jim Brockmire. And, he does play-by-play, and I do play-by-play or color or whatever the hell they're going to pay me for. And I'll do it for whatever sport it is. He does baseball, but hell, I'll do color for Bruce Silverman anytime he's doing a soccer match. And so I always wanted to do, a soccer match and then go Jonathan, what do you think about that? Yeah, I'm Jonathan Brockmeyer. And that was an incredible kick. He turned his hips and that's why he sailed wide left. But if he just plants that foot better, this might be a 1-0 game.
These characters in Chicago, there is a DJ, and I think he was on. It was either on WLS or the Loop. It was the morning from the 10 to 2 guy, and he created a character named Jim Shorts. Took me years to realize the joke, Jim Shorts, but I can't remember the DJ's name, but I remember the character.
Yeah, it's funny because my talk show host partner is Chicago. I mean, he is Chicago through and through. Grew up Cubs fan, Chicago Sting, Chicago Horizon.
Wow,
you name it. Oh yeah, huge Chicago fan. And so he would always book these guys from Chicago to be on our show, whether it was Chicago athletes or Chicago musicians. I have interviewed more guys from the Chicago rock scene, like Carl Giamrisi from the Buckinghams, and Jimmy Sands from Shadows of Night, and the guys from New Colony 6 and the Grassroots, you name it. Mark Dawson from the Grassroots has become a friend. Carl Giamrisi, Jim Peterick, if you remember Jim Peterick from Ides of March in Survivor.
Wow.
Yeah. I've gotten Jim Peterick to sing to me a few times, which is kind of neat.
Did you ever get to speak with, and here's 2 names from the past, Jack Brickhouse or Harry Carey?
No, no to either one. Harry was before my time. I have
certainly before your time.
Yeah, I mean, at least before my time in broadcast, not before my time in just watching sports. But I remember one time somebody asked me, "Have you ever drank on the air?" And they were making reference to Harry Carey, and I said, "No, I slur my words sober." So the last thing we need is for me to be on the air with even the slightest bit of alcohol. And it's funny because when I was with the Fort Lauderdale Strikers and when I was with Miami FC, I would always, on my way into the building, go in and check in with the fans at the tailgates. And it was always a good way to get a hot dog and be offered a beer.
And
I always took the hot dog and passed on the beer. It was just fun. I've always enjoyed my interaction with the fans and getting to know them and being their eyes and ears, like we were talking about before.
Who has been your greatest influence in broadcasting?
I don't know necessarily that there are any on-air influences.
Okay.
Certainly Chuck Dowdle for me going, wow, that looks like a really cool gig. And maybe I can do that one day. I don't listen to talk radio at all. Because as I was talking to somebody had reached out to me the other day, interested in bringing my talk show to his network. And, we were talking about it and I said, I don't listen to talk radio because it's the same thing over and over and over again. It doesn't matter who the hosts are. It doesn't matter what the market is. For the most part, it's all sophomoric. It is sexist. It's misogynistic. And it's, for the most part, I don't think that talk radio today is even smart. Unfortunately, There are only a handful of outlets. There's only a handful of ownership groups, and it has to be the same thing. It has to be formula. You can only talk about certain things. You can't talk about other things. And that's not the type of radio that I've ever wanted to do. I like talking about topics, and I will take on topics. I'll take on topics that people won't take on. When the whole Jerry Sandusky thing was going on at Penn State, I was doing full shows, 2-hour shows on that subject.
And nobody wanted to talk about it.
No. And so I remember one of my most memorable shows was 2 hours. I blew out the commercials, and I had a sports anchor from College Station come on and talk about the sports aspect of it, and how it pertained to what was going on in town and with the university, and how it was plaguing the football program. Then I had a friend of mine who is now a licensed sex therapist, sexologist, was at the time a therapist specializing in the sexual aspects of mental health. And I had her come on and give her that perspective. And then I had a former federal prosecutor come on and talk about the legal aspect of it. That's the type of talk that fascinates me and that I'm interested in. I'm interested in topics. I'm interested in taking on subjects. I was talking about homosexuality in sports on the radio when no one else would talk about it. I was talking about it before Jason Collins came out. I was talking about it before Michael Sam came out. I wrote an article that appeared in multiple outlets throughout the country, including The Advocate, called "Who Will Be the Gay Jackie Robinson?" And I think it started, I think if I remember the article, I think it started by saying, "I'm straight." There, I said it. And the whole idea was, and the whole idea was that here, it's easy for me to say I'm straight because I'm not going to lose my job for saying I'm straight. My life isn't going to be that difficult because I'm straight. On the subject of athletics and professional athletics, really being a straight, especially male athlete, even today, even however many years after Michael Sam and after Jason Collins, it's very, very difficult to be a professional athlete and to be out. And we saw what happened.
And to that end, I mean, I think people get too hung up on identifying themselves by their view of their sexual orientation that, frankly, I really think doesn't belong in the conversation for the most part about what people's talking about. I don't care if someone is straight, gay, or any of the other many flavors that are being thrown at us by the mainstream media at this time. When I choose to watch football, when I choose to watch baseball, I really couldn't give a rip about it. And to have it become such a touchstone in society, I think is driving a completely different agenda as opposed to entertainment.
Well, I think there's two different, or probably more than two different ways to look at it. One is there is an unbelievable sense of homophobia in sports at all levels, from youth, recreational, all the way up through the professionals. There are.
I disagree with that. I disagree with that because, quite frankly, growing up in the Chicagoland area when nobody talked about being gay, okay, and then as people came out, I'll use that phrase, it has become shoved down people's throats in such a fashion by the mainstream entertainment groups that you would think that every third person in society is gay when the statistics put out by whatever group you look at, whether they are conservative groups, liberal groups, progressive groups, all the various groups that there are, don't say 1 in 3 people are gay. Yet you watch TV and it's like 1 in 3 people are gay. So
no, I think what it comes down to in professional sports, there are very few publicly out professional athletes in the United States.
Because it has nothing to do with what their job is.
No, that's actually not it. That's actually not it. That's actually not it. The reason that they don't come out, and they'll tell you this while they're playing, is they know that their career is limited. They know that because they've seen it multiple times. They have seen careers end. They have seen careers not even start because of the homophobia that there is in the ownership level, in the management level, even in the coaching level, and even among some teammates. Now, some sports are better than others, and we're seeing more acceptance in some than others. But at the end of the day, there's still that bias. So most athletes will tell you,
but there's bias against everybody.
That's true. But for the gay,
now I'm a charismatic Christian. There's bias against me.
But here's the thing: if you're a professional athlete and you know that you got 3, 5, 10 years, right, and then you can't perform at that level any longer. If you are gay,
right,
chances
which has nothing to do with what you do for a living.
Correct. But chances are you're going to not come out publicly for fear that your career will be cut short or will never happen at all. The reason that most athletes come out after their careers is because they know, because they're in the inside. They know. But
why do they come out? Why does there need to be a pronouncement of one's sexual orientation? I just don't get it. Go out, live a good life, be a good example, and in your own inner circle of people that you want to share that with, God bless you. But if you want to take a microphone and put it in front of someone's face and have them go, "Hey, I'm a homosexual," talk about being narcissistic.
No, I don't see that at all.
Growing facial hair. I mean, it is narcissism, in my opinion.
Yeah, I completely disagree with that, because I think people that are gay, they want to live they want to live their life. They want to live their truth. They want to be treated equally. You know, it's interesting. Don't
keep setting yourselves apart from everyone else.
But because there's a bias in the world, they have to protect themselves, at least in a financial standpoint. That's why athletes come out after their careers. They make their money because that career is finite.
When someone applies to be in a professional sports team, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're A, recruited, and B, do they ask them their sexual orientation?
Yes.
Because it's my understanding that that's illegal.
Yeah, well,
it's illegal.
Up until recently, and I would have to check on this to see if it's changed. But within the last few years, at the NFL combines, athletes were asked about their sexuality.
It's illegal.
It may be illegal.
The owners, find them.
But here's the difference. Here's the difference. If you are an accountant, for the most part, nobody cares what your sexuality is or what your lifestyle is or what you're into or anything else, because you're an accountant.
Okay.
Because you're not in the showers, You're not in the locker rooms. You're not
Right.
naked with other guys. So I'm not saying that I agree with this mindset. I'm just saying these are the things that gay athletes have to deal with, whether they're out or whether they're closeted. They know that the bias against them is, if I'm a gay male athlete and I'm out in the locker room, my teammates are going to look differently at me because they think when we're in the shower or when we're changing, you're looking at me in some kind of sexual objection, which is not the case at all. But it is a fear in the locker room.
Even bring it. I just don't get it.
It's not brought up. It's not brought up because, once again, careers have been cut short. Careers have been ruined. Careers have never started because of rumors of people being gay, not even being gay, just rumors.
And frankly, when John F. Kennedy was elected president, and I can't believe I'm using Kennedy as an example, but when Kennedy was elected president, there was a huge contingency within the United States that said he was going to be taking marching orders from Rome because he was Roman Catholic. Because he was a Roman Catholic, which is about as mainstream as you get today.
Right, but 1960 was 1960, and flash forward to 2021, and homosexuality is unfortunately still an issue.
About as in our face as it could ever be.
But it's still not accepted. That's part of the issue.
Right, but does it have to be accepted? Do I have to accept it? Do you have to accept that I am a Christian and agree with my Christianity? Do you have to agree with it? We were both raised as Jews. I've chosen to become a Christian. Do you have to agree with that choice?
No.
Okay.
But here's the difference. I'm fully accepting of the choices that you made and whatever happened in your life that took you in that direction. That's for you. But there are people that will say that they don't accept people being Jewish. They don't accept people being gay. They don't accept.
Those people are wrong.
There are people. Look, I saw something this morning that was talking about the pay gap between men and women, and that's something that exists, and I think it's something that is ridiculously wrong. And
people should be paid based upon their abilities.
But there is, use that word bias again. There is a bias that men should get paid more than women. And one of the comments that somebody made about equal pay was, I once asked my boss why my coworker, who had the exact same job as me, who had been with the company just as long as me, was making more money than me. And the response was, he has a wife and he has a family.
Do you know the people in that story? Because I've heard that story relayed countless times, and no one can ever say they know the people in that story.
Well, I don't know this person that I read this comment from today, but I absolutely know women. Her response was, well, I'm a single mother. I know women that have gotten paid less than their male counterparts.
But they accepted the job. No one forced them to take the job.
But see, that
I mean, they're not an indentured servant, are they?
Well, but you don't always have a choice. To make the statement, well, you didn't have to take that job. Well, right. Some people don't have the choice. It's that job or I don't have a job. So they'll take whatever they can get. And that's part of the problem, in my opinion, is that employers feel like they can say, if you want the job, here are the terms. If you don't want the job, then don't accept the terms.
And I think one of the biggest problems we have in society today is people's victim mentality and seeing how many victim groups they can associate with, because that makes them an even bigger victim yet. But we have steered so far away from
let's go back.
I am now going to whip it back. Great debate, Bruce.
Yeah.
So we've gone 45 minutes in a 30-minute show. So I'm going to give you the last minute to talk to people directly into the camera about what they should do if they're interested in going into broadcasting.
Well, if they're interested in going into broadcasting, I flat out say go for it. Make a tape, make some phone calls. Today broadcasting is very, very different than it was 30 some odd years ago when I started. The internet was barely a thing. Nobody was making their own videos. There wasn't YouTube. You couldn't go on Periscope or TikTok. And, there's so many non-traditional ways to be a broadcaster today that it's out there, and if you want to be a broadcaster, I say go for it. Always have something to fall back on, which is the reason why, I've been a businessman for the better part of my life as well. And that was an aspect that we didn't even get to discuss, which we didn't quite get
to pivot there. And then the conversation took another turn. So,
well, no, let's go back. Zip, we didn't have to debate on social mores. I'm certainly more interested in talking about, the businesses and the way that I help businesses, because that's what I'm really passionate about, is that I have the ability to help people, and help them keep more revenue and be more successful through accepting payments. And obviously I'm referring to credit card processing. Most people look at credit card processing as a liability. Credit card processing is an asset. You have to accept payment. And especially today, where payments in a lot of cases need to be contactless, restaurants where literally you walk in, grab your food and leave, means they're getting payments in advance, e-commerce, so services, everything else. So because I'm a creative person, I've been able to take credit card processing and make it creative. And there's so many tools that are out there for QR codes. I joke all the time that QR codes are becoming more and more popular today. And 10 years ago, I thought that was going to be a dead technology. And now you can walk up to a window in a restaurant and put your phone up to it, get the menu, order what you want, and they'll walk it out to you. Right. You've got television networks right now putting QR codes on the screen so that you can zap it and you can learn where you can get a vaccine. The iPhone now, you don't even need a special app to scan a QR code. You can just do it with the camera, and the camera recognizes that it's a QR code, and it immediately gives you the button to click on the link that takes you to the website to get the information or to make the order or anything else that you want. There are so many people out there that think that the only way that they can process a credit card is Stripe, PayPal, or Square. Right. And they pay ridiculous fees with zero customer service, running the risk at any time for being dropped, having their deposits frozen for 180 days, getting their rates increased, everything else. I speak to people every single day, and in almost every single case, regardless of their industry, I'm able to put them in a better position, give them better customer service, give them better rates, help them save more of their own income, and pay less to credit card fees. We've got one program where the merchant
hit you with timeout. everyone, if you want to find out about credit card processing, because we've gone 49 and a half minutes on the 30-minute show, I am going to make sure that Bruce is tagged in the Facebook video, so you'll be able to click on his name, and then you can just reach out to him directly, and he will talk to you about the wonders of what he can do for you for credit card processing. Bruce, thank you so much for being my guest today. It was an interesting conversation and a lively debate. No doubt about it.
And I enjoyed it. Look, the fact of the matter is, and we talked about this off the air, that there was one subject that we were going to completely stay away from, which I think we wiggled into it, which is fine. Here's what I would say about the discussion that we had, whether you want to call it a debate or a discussion or whatever it is. It's okay to have disagreements. We live in a society today where a lot of people can't have disagreements, and that's unfortunate. I'll wrap it up this way. You had talked about when somebody asked you, what's my favorite team? And you said, I don't care. Well, you're from Chicago. If you're talking baseball and you're in Chicago and somebody says, who's your favorite team? And one guy says the Cubs and one guy says the Sox.
Well, the guy who said the Sox probably has a grammar school education, so.
I have a friend whose grandfather used to own the Sox. Let me have that conversation with him and see what he thinks about that. Look, my point was, you can have two fans have completely two different teams, have lively debates as to who's the better team, who had the better players, or anything else. The same thing can happen when you're in opposites of a subject matter and whatever it is. The difference is to have that conversation, listen to both sides. You don't have to come away agreeing or disagreeing with what the conversation was, but you don't have to come to blows. It doesn't have to have colorful language mixed in, and there doesn't have to be a flurry of insults to go along with it. And I think we proved that.
We did.
So I enjoyed the conversation. And like you said, if anybody owns a business of any kind, from the lowest of risk to the highest of risk, and I'm doing a lot of business with CBD right now, I'm happy to talk to anybody, get to know what your business is all about, and see how I can help you out. And Sean, I appreciated coming on your show today and having this conversation. And I know that you're having more with some of our other brothers and helping some other brothers, including, I know you just had a conversation with David about his son, Jordan.
Right.
And I'm thrilled that he was able to use that platform to raise money and hopefully find a way to save his son's life and others.
And that is the show today, people. Be back tomorrow where we're going to talk to someone else. I don't think there'll be a debate, but it will still be about leadership. You have a great day now.